The Supreme Court cleared the way for cities to enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outside in public places on Friday, overturning a ruling from a California based appeals court that found such laws amount to cruel and unusual punishment when shelter space is lacking. The case is High Court's most significant ruling on the issue in decades and comes as rising number of people in the United States are without a permanent place to live. In a 6-3 decision, along ideological lines, the High Court found that outdoor sleeping bans don't violate the Eighth Amendment. Western cities had argued that the ruling made it harder to manage outdoor encampments in public spaces, but homeless advocates state punishing people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness. In California, which is home to one-third of the country's homeless population, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom stated the decision gave states and local officials the authority to clear, quote, unsafe encampments from the streets while acting with compassion. Quote, the decision removes the legal ambiguities that had tied the hands of local officials for years. Justice Neil Gorsuch alleged those concerns an opinion he wrote for the majority. Quote, homelessness is complex. Its causes are many, so maybe the public policy responses required to address it. A handful of federal judges cannot begin to match the collective wisdom the American people possess in deciding, quote, how best to handle a pressing social question like homelessness. He suggested that people who have no choice but to sleep outdoors could raise that as a necessity defense if they are tricked or otherwise punished for violating a camping ban. Homelessness advocates, on the other hand, have stated that allowing cities to punish people who have no other place to sleep would ultimately make the crisis worse. Cities have been allowing to regulate encampments under the United States Ninth Circuit Court of Appealing ruling, but couldn't completely bar people from sleeping outdoors. Quote, sleeping is a biological necessity and not a crime. Homelessness is a reality for so many Americans, and that was stated by Justice Sotomayor. Punishing people for something they can't control, like homelessness, is cruel and unusual. She stated that, warning, that striking down Eighth Amendment arguments against camping bans likely won't end the fight over the ordinance in court. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, a Democrat, criticized the majority ruling, stating that cities shouldn't attempt to arrest their way out of the problem or hide the homelessness crisis in neighboring cities or in jails. The only way to truly address it, she stated, is to connect people with housing and services. The case came from the rural Oregon town of Grant Pass, which appealed a ruling striking down local ordinances and fined people $295 for sleeping outside after tents began crowding public parks. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over the 9 western states, has held since 2018 that such bans violate the Eighth Amendment in areas where there aren't enough shelter beds. Grant Pass Mayor Sarah Bristol stated that the city will not immediately start enforcing those local ordinances, finding people for sleeping outside, and that the city council will need to review the decision and determine the next steps. Quote, the lawsuit was about whether cities have the right to enforce camping restrictions in public spaces, and I'm relieved that Grants Pass will be able to reclaim our city parks and recreation. Homelessness is a complex issue, and our community has been trying to find a solution. An attorney representing Grants Pass before the High Court applauded the ruling by stating that the Ninth Court decision had tied the hands of local government. Quote, years from now, I hope that we will look back on today watershed ruling as the turning point in America's homelessness crisis. In Portland, meanwhile, a spokesperson for the mayor's office stated that the effect of the ruling will likely be muted since the state has separate legal limits on how cities can manage encampments. Seattle's officials also expected a limited impact. An attorney for homelessness, people who live in Grants Pass, bemoaned the decision. We are disappointed that the majority of the courts have decided that our Constitution allows a city to punish its homeless residents simply for sleeping outside with a blanket to survive the cold when there is nowhere else for them to go. Friday's ruling comes after homelessness in the United States grew a dramatic 12% last year to its highest reported level. Also, soaring rent and a decline in the coronavirus pandemic assistance combined to put housing out of reach for most people. More than 650,000 people are estimated to be homeless, the most since the country began using a yearly point in time survey since 2007. A lack of access to mental health and additional resources can contribute to the crisis. Older adults, LGBTQ plus people, and people of color are disproportionately affected by homelessness. Nearly half of people without housing sleep outside. Now, I want people to pay attention to this, and I understand what some concerns people are going to say about homeless people. Oh, why can't they get a job? Why can't they just pick themselves up and do what it is that they need to do? Yada, 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 all the other type of good stuff, right? I want to remind people that not too long ago, you had the housing crisis where a lot of people lost their homes. A lot of families that were actually had a home, they were safe and secure, they lost everything. Some people lost their jobs during that stint of time. Some people were living directly out of their cars. You had people living on the side of the street, people living in parks, people living directly under bridges. And again, you still have people that had no type of sympathy. And the main thing that I try to reiterate to people 99 different times is the fact that you are not that far from being homeless. It don't matter how much money that you have. You are literally a couple zeros away. You are literally a job or two away from being directly out there on the street, because once you lose your income, everything else is going to inevitably collapse. That means that you're not going to have a car, whatever car that you basically have or own. You're not going to have it no more, because guess what? You're not going to be able to keep up the tags. You're not going to be able to keep up to date with the license plate. You're not going to be able to keep up with your driver's license, right? You're not going to be able to keep up with where it is that you currently have that car. You're not going to be able to keep up with your house or the rent for your apartment. Again, everything is going to collapse. And then that's not even to bring up, dealing with groceries, dealing with toiletries, dealing with having to wash said clothes or having to take a bath and or a shower. Like I said, there's a variety of things there that a lot of people don't want to account for. People just think that a lot of people out here just want to be homeless, and that's not the case. Some of these people are actually good people. They just fell down pretty hard. Some people lost everything and they were not able to recover. Some people literally watched their families perish in front of them, and then they turned to alcohol or drugs, and they were never able to recover because of that heartbreak, because of that loss, and because they've never actually, healed from it. They just used the drugs and alcohol because they didn't have nobody to talk to. They just spiraled out of control. You have a lot of people that actually have stories of the reason of why it is and how it is that they ended up on the streets. Then you also have the facts of sometimes you do have people out there that are out there on the streets and their families do know, and their families refuse to do anything for them. I'm not talking about the extenuating circumstances where people are out there on the streets and their families or other people are trying to help them and they're just continuously turning down the help. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people who are literally homeless and their families know, and they refuse to not even reach out, to not even talk to, not even get in contact, to not even bring that person in. It's crazy. It's crazy. And now you have the governments who rule over everybody sitting up there stating, yeah, we can hide the homeless now. What we're going to do is we'll just, create some other laws, ordinances, and we'll throw them in jail. They'll just have an indefinite stay there. And I'm trying to tell people this is going to be a collapse, and this is going to be an avalanche that people are not prepared for, because what's going to happen is this. They're going to price people out of a lot of things. So you can clearly see what's going on with the markets. You can clearly see what's going on with jobs. It's going to get to the point in time where ordinary everyday jobs that people used to be able to work, 30, 40 years ago, you're not going to be able to work those no more, because they're going to have automation. They're going to have robots basically working those, which means that now you have to get certificates. You have to be, in a sense, skilled. Some people may be grandfathered in, but that's not going to be the greater majority. A lot of people are going to have to try to figure out some stuff. I'm not sure, again, if people saw Elysium and what that looked like, but it's going to be looking like something similar to that. So then what they're going to start to do is, once everything starts collapsing because food and everything is going up, along with the rent is going up, is going to outprice a lot of people, because they're not going to be able to afford one thing or the other, and everything is going to fall apart. So then those people who are priced out are going to end up being what? Homeless. So then they're going to create these ordinances where they're going to tell people that, okay, well, if you're homeless, you're pretty much going to have an indefinite jail stay. because you're going to break the law and then you're going to go back out and break the law again. So you're basically a repeat offender. It seems like you got a record here. So yeah, we're just going to make that an extended stay, and we're going to have you there instead of re-releasing you out, because we know that you're not going to, go out there and get a job and yada, yada, yada. So they assume we're just going to make your stay about 3 to 4 years, so we don't have to worry about it. So that's going to be the new way that they're going to keep bodies directly in those cells, so that people who are invested in these prisons and jails can continuously make that money. That's going to be the revolving door. That's going to be the circle. And that's the conversation that a lot of people are not ready for. That's the direction that a lot of people on both sides don't want to look at, because guess what? Both sides are going to profit directly from that. So why would they actually talk about it? So again, like I said before, I simply do videos to give people warnings and to let people know where the future is going to go, because every single day they're making more and more prisons, more and more jails. But yet we don't have a whole bunch of quote unquote Americans committing all of the crimes for the reasons that they would actually need to implement a lot of these things. So who are the people that's going to be held in these? Or when are they? Or what rules or regulations are you going to make up so that you can now start putting said everyday people directly in there? Just guessing, just wondering. Again, just to see, to put directly out there, to make people think and wonder about the things that are transpiring at this moment in time. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about this video and everything I stated in the comment description below. And as always, peace, love, and stay tuned for the next video.